Hello and welcome to the On The Go podcast, henceforth referred to as OTGP. My name is Michael Bratt. If you don't know what's going on here, let me explain. It all began when I was sitting in traffic the one day coming home from work, and I was incredibly bored. I needed something to do to keep me occupied. Thoughts began to run through my mind. What can I do? I listen to the radio, and I listen to music through my headphones, and I look around at other motorists and see what they're doing. But I needed something new. Combine this with the fact that I'm in the media industry and I wanted to grow my presence in this space. I wanted to give my thoughts on topics of news that are making news. And I just want to give my thoughts on things that interest me. Things which I can tell people about and hopefully they'll be interested in them as well. And the best way I thought to do this was to do regular updates. Now it was going to be a video. So live streaming of my journey home, but I realized the technical aspects of that would be quite impossible. So we're stuck with audio now, but I think that audio is just as good. You know, as long as you're descriptive, as long as you're not, just don't speak too fast, as long as you do it right, it can be very good. So we now have the On The Go podcast. I don't know how excited people will be about this. I don't know the reception that they'll give it. Perhaps nobody will listen to it, but the other element which it will help me is that it will allow me to increase my portfolio, and it will allow me to develop my presenting and audio recording and editing skills, something which I'm looking to do. I studied radio at university and I've never had a chance to work in radio, so hopefully that this exercise will help me to find a gap in that market. But yes, On The Go podcast. And we've got a couple of very interesting topics which came up today. But before I begin, let me tell you, maybe you have a bit of a concern, because when you're on our roads, you have to be concentrating. You have to be watching out for the other motorists, you have to be watching out for the pedestrians, you have to be watching out for the potholes, and I'm not going to be neglecting my concentration. I will still be able to concentrate on the road and on the motorists and on the pedestrians and on the potholes. So there may be gaps in my thinking, there may be gaps in the audio. So now here's a topic for you. I've just been stopped by a traffic control officer. It's not a policeman, he looks like a pointsman. Now, he's situated outside of a business. It looks like an office park. My question is, how do these traffic control officers get placed? I know they get placed at major intersections when the robots are out, but why is he sitting outside of this office park? Are they paying him? If yes, then good on you. But to me, it's not really necessary to have him here. Yes, people need to come out of the office park, but the road that I'm on, there are plenty of opportunities for them to come out of the office park. That was just a random thought from me, and you'll find that during the podcast there will be random thoughts. On to the news that I saw today. The first one was a report was released around the deaths of 94 mentally ill patients after the cancellation of a contract with Life Esidimeni Healthcare Centre. These 94 patients were moved to 27 NGOs and they subsequently died. As a result of this, the Gauteng MEC for Health, Ms. Mahlangu, has resigned, and Gauteng Premier David Makhura has promised that heads are going to roll. Anybody who is involved in this in any way, both directly and indirectly, related to these deaths, they're going to pay. The big question I have, will people be held accountable? Yes, the MEC has resigned, but is there going to be any further action against her? And when he says heads will roll, who is he talking about? That's going to be very interesting to watch. The other story, which I'd like to share my thoughts on, is Gerrie Nel of the National Prosecuting Authority. Of course, he's best known for the Oscar Pistorius trial. But news came out that he has resigned from the NPA, and he has joined AfriForum. AfriForum is a civil organization that campaigns mainly for white Afrikaners. Gerrie Nel is going to be the head of its private prosecutions unit. This has raised concerns. Is this in competition with the NPA? Is this an add-on to the NPA? Because one of the journalists asked at the press conference, do you see now two justice streams in South Africa, the NPA and now the AfriForum prosecuting unit? Gerrie Nel said no, there is one justice system, and this is just an addition to the NPA. It's a unit which will prosecute crimes which the NPA has no interest in. Another concern which has been raised is whether or not AfriForum's new prosecuting unit will focus on cases solely around white Afrikaners, because that is what AfriForum is known for. I don't think so. I think Gerrie Nel is going to include as many races as... It doesn't matter about the race, it doesn't matter about the culture. He is going to look for justice wherever he can find it, no matter who is involved. And I'm looking forward to it. But the big thing that came out today was that just days before his resignation, Nel faced an internal investigation ordered by the NPA head, Shaun Abrahams. Did this investigation contribute to Gerrie Nel leaving? Is the investigation still ongoing? And what will the outcome of it be? I don't know the answer to any of these questions, and I don't think we're ever going to find out, particularly the first one, of why he left, whether it did have something to do with it. But it's quite concerning, particularly when there's been a lot of controversy around policing and prosecuting units in South Africa. We had the acting head of the police, I believe, who's being investigated for corruption. Now, it's not very good. It's not a very good standard. It's quite concerning that the National Prosecuting Authority is also having these investigations. I don't know how valid the claims are, but again, we will have to wait and see. A bit of a more light-hearted topic that I'm interested in. I love sport. I'm a sportsman. I used to play a lot of sports. I don't anymore, but I want to get back into it, obviously. But my favorite team, my soccer team, is Manchester United. Manchester United, they're going to be playing tonight. This on the back of a 4-0 victory over Wigan in the FA Cup. Tonight they're playing Hull in the Premier League. I'm hoping that the confidence in the camp is high and that we can get a good result against Hull. Hull is often like Stoke. They're a very unpredictable team. Some games they play absolutely fantastically, other games they play absolutely terribly. Very little consistency. So I'm keen to see who's going to score tonight. When this podcast does go out, the game will have already been played, and you can get that reaction in my next podcast. For the moment, I am just hoping United can get a good result. So that really is the first edition of the On The Go podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at MichaelBratt8. You can email me at brat.michael@gmail.com. I will leave the details in the description below. Yeah, that's really it for the first edition of the podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it. That is my aim. My aim is to boost my profile and help me practice my skills, increase my exposure, while at the same time entertaining you and informing you and educating you, and just everybody having a good time. I'm having a good time. I hope you've had a good time. And that's the aim of it. Please let me know how I can improve this podcast. Please let me know what I did well. Give me some support. I'm going to leave you with a joke, because, obviously we had a lot of hard news. We had the report into the deaths of the mentally ill patients. We had Gerrie Nel. So we need to end with a bit of lightheartedness. And I found a really good joke online. I have never heard it before. I hope you haven't as well. What do you call an alligator in a vest? It's actually quite obvious. An investigator. Oh, I love that. But yes, that is On The Go podcast. Until next time, it's goodbye from me.